covering the community, the people, events, and issues of Georgia, Carolina. This is the Means Report. Now, from the studios of WJBF News Channel 6 in Television Park in downtown Augusta, here's Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for spending part of your Sunday with us here on the Means Report. We appreciate it, and we are happy to focus on the youth of the CSRA during the next half hour. As always on the Means Report, we'll present problems that we're seeing in this community, but we'll also tell you about solutions that are being offered out there. And today, we want to focus on our young people, especially students, gangs and gang violence, and what we can all do to combat the problem. What police officers are doing right there on campus to help keep our schools safe. Also, what agencies in our community are ready and willing to do to keep these kids on the right track. And of course, advice for all of us parents at home as far as what we can do to make sure our youngsters grow up in the right way and that we decrease these gang violence statistics that we sometimes have the misfortune of reporting here on the news. First, though, a report to prove that this is not happening in big towns. In fact, this was recently filed by a reporter in our sister market, Spartanburg, South Carolina, where we have a television station. Spartanburg's no New York City or Los Angeles, but they're seeing issues in their schools already, just as we are in this neck of the woods. Graham Moore has that.
Back to 3, please.
Welcome to Spartanburg's north side.
You're right in the middle of it.
Police say the crime rate here is one of the highest in the city, and Spartanburg public safety investigator Chris Roberts doesn't like what he's seeing lately.
They're just tagging this whole area up.
He says gangs are spray painting gang graffiti on vacant homes, signs, even this church, whose pastor is concerned.
Desecrating of the Lord's house is, unforgivable, I would say.
Think of it as their way of publishing messages.
They could be marking their territory. They're trying to tell something to another gang. This is a cave for killer.
Roberts took over as the city's gang investigator in January, and he's spent a lot of time since then identifying gangs and where they hang out, their so-called territories.
The territory belongs to the citizens and the neighbors, not the gangs, and that's what we're trying to curb.
With gangs comes crime, and lots of it. Roberts says gang members commit a large number of crimes, from armed robbery to drug violations to home invasions.
The gang members are not holding down legitimate jobs. In order to support the gang, they have to resort to criminal activity.
And they're recruiting young kids as young as 7. Some may call the younger ones wannabes, but Roberts says a wannabe is a going to be.
Those are potentially the more violent ones and do the more crime because they're trying to impress, if you will, the older gang members.
Roberts is just starting to crack down on the gangs, but it's something he says he's determined to change.
I want the citizens that live here to be able to live here in peace. Not amongst this.
A tall order for a way of life that seems so hard to break.
What about when that gang activity moves from our communities into our schools? Two gentlemen from the front lines of the effort to fight those numbers, make them go down, are joining us right now. They're with the Richmond County Board of Education Police Department. They are officers on campus each and every day protecting our children and making sure things run smoothly. Lieutenant Richard Roundtree and Sergeant Ike Williams. Lieutenant Roundtree and Sergeant Williams, thank you all for being with us today.
Thanks for inviting me, bro.
Thank you very much for having us.
We have a reporter here in Augusta who's working on a story that'll air by the time this Means Report episode comes on, and it'll air again Sunday night after this report, about gangs. It's called Gangs in the AUG, and you told that reporter, Lieutenant Roundtree, and I'll get you to tell our audience, this is serious. You've had to tell a parent that their child was dead because of gang violence. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most horrific thing you can do is tell a parent that a child is no longer here with us. Because every parent, when they send a child out to school or to work or to play, they expect that child to come home. No parent gets up in the morning and expects that child not to come home at night. So that's one of the hardest things you have to do in law enforcement. And then the senseless ways to be taken, an act of violence through gang violence, that just makes it more detrimental to the family and their recovery period.
Sergeant Williams, you are in charge of Zone 4 in Richmond County. Your territory, if you will, includes Hepzibah High School, Cross Creek High School, as well as middle and elementary schools in that zone. Do you see gang activity there?
Yes, sir, all around us in the neighborhood and in the schools. You see the gang activities, graffiti. What starts in the neighborhood, you might see one set of graffiti and then later on you'll see it crossed out. And that represents 2 or more gangs in the neighborhood that's fighting for that territory.
And then do you ever see these gang members making themselves known on campus, or is it mainly through this, I'm going to hide behind graffiti, or I'm going to hide behind a pair of shoes tossed over a telephone wire? Do they ever come out and walk the streets or walk the halls and let you know who they are?
Yes, sir, it does. Some of them, most of the gang members are proud to say that they are a part of a gang, and it's never more evident than you see when they have the graffiti actually tattooed on them.
Yep.
Now, in the last couple of years, I myself, like Lieutenant Roundtree, it's a sad thing when you got to talk to a parent about losing a kid. I taught one out of a gang last year. And this particular individual went back in the gang, and he was one of our 38 homicides.
Unbelievable, yes, almost 40 homicides in Richmond County last year.
Right.
Lieutenant, being in a gang, I guess, is not a crime. Maybe it is. But how do you tell when your child has crossed that line from being just part of a group where he or she wants to be accepted and being part of a group that's committing crimes?
Right, and that's the lure of the gang is acceptance. Like I said, in our community, that's the thing we're trying to get parents involved in this. And if the parents get so involved in their child's life, anything that happens in the child's life, good or bad, there's going to be a behavioral change in that child. So a parent has to be so involved that they know. So it's not, there's a negative impact on it. And now we get to the point where we're trying to educate parents, and we start a gang task force in the school system to educate parents of this problem and what these kids are being exposed to. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are in denial here to the fact of saying you don't have a gang problem, because they compare it to big cities and LA's and Detroit's. But the problem is, if you get a group of kids together who arm themselves and go out and commit violent crime, that's a gang. I don't care if they call themselves the Mickey Mouse Boys or the Girl Scout Cookie Gang. They are a gang, and they are dangerous. And the parents need to know these children are being exposed to that. And if they're not taking an active role in their child's life, they're going to miss that.
Well, let me ask you this, either one of you. Is it a matter of talking to your child, and if you try to and they slam their bedroom door in your face, what's your next step? Sometimes we parents feel helpless if the kids won't talk to us.
Well, the main thing is education is going to be the key. We're on a battle, a war right now with the gangs in our local community to get the younger kids educated how dangerous it is to join a gang. I've had 2 individuals that we've taken weapons off of that were 8 years old. They told me that they had been in the gang for a year and a half, so that made them 6.5 years old when they were initiated. And the average age is about 25 years old before they meet with some kind of dramatic turn of events, either going to jail or deceased.
How do you make them open up and explain to you what's going on in their lives, Lieutenant, and explain to you why their behavior's changed?
Well, we can look at, like I said, the times we are now, especially in this particular area, and I like to concentrate to the parents in our area, let them know, we understand that the demographics, that there are a lot of single-parent households. That's the reality of what we're living in here now. But that's not an excuse. That's just a reason that we need to go in and be involved with different groups. Now, one of the things that we have to do is let the parents know that you have to be an active role in that child's life. You can't stop there and just trying to be their best friend. You need to be their parent, because children need structure. It's our goal, and as parents and as educators and just members of the community, is to bring these children up in the most safe environment as possible so they can have a chance for productive. Like Sergeant Williams say, if you get a child who's 12 and 13 and you wait till he's 16 or 17 before you show active interest in that child's life, it'll be that much more challenging for you to change that destructive behavior, because the gangs are getting in them young. And so why are we going to wait till they're 15 or 16 before we take an active role in that child's life? We got to start younger.
Is it possible to talk a child out of a gang? And what about the fear that the gang itself will take that child and punish him for what mom and dad tried to do?
Sometime it happens, Mr. Means, but the main thing is, it's kind of like when I worked narcotics for the Sheriff's Department, that person has to want to get out the gang.
Right.
We can talk to them and show them the right way. They have to take that first step. Now, many of the parents are taking that first step to learn about the gang signs and about the gang culture. When we put on gang awareness seminars and they show up, that's that first step, because they are our first line of defense. We need to partnership with them and other organizations. It's not a police problem, it's really a community problem.
Lieutenant Roundtree, I want to make sure that people are aware of this issue, but I also want to not sugarcoat it. Are you losing the battle? Is this something that's getting bigger each and every year? Tell me what you're feeling out there on the front lines.
Well, I think the frustration that we have is, as a society, we're living in denial because we're comparing our problem to big city problems. The thing we want Augusta, we don't want to be to the point where as people start comparing gang problems to Augusta. Yeah. And that's where we got the reverse effect. So people have been living, that's the most frustrating point. People want to wait till you think you have a problem with people shooting each other in the street every day,
right,
but to think you have a problem. And if it gets to that point, that's when you're on the losing end of it. Right now, we take a grasp of it now, and like I said, we are in challenging times, no doubt about that. But now, if we step forward now, it's time for people to stop talking about that you do not have a problem. Recognize that you have one, but we at the point where we can fix it. We can take control of it, so we won't be the LAs and we won't be the Chicagos, we won't be the Detroits, and that's what we don't want to be.
What can we do as parents? I know we're going to have a couple of groups on here in just a second that will tell us what they do to help with gang intervention, but from a Board of Education perspective, from a Board of Education Police Department perspective, can parents reach out to y'all? What should be the mom and dad's first step?
Well, and that's one of the reasons that we created our gang task force, and we have 6 officers who have dedicated their time and volunteered to do work after duty, on weekends, to start tracking this gang problem. And these officers don't get paid a dime extra and besides their regular duties. And we put over 50 workshops within the last year trying to get this. So you're talking about a school system that has over 32,000 kids. So you're talking about this gang problem, it goes in the neighborhood, it comes into the school, goes back into the neighborhoods. So it's a cycle. So we're right on the front lines with this. So the parents, we let them know, if you have a problem, yeah, call us. We'll come out, we'll do an assessment, we'll look at it, we'll encourage it. Because mostly, what people don't understand, when you're in the gang, they don't stop going to school. They don't stop doing violent behavior. No. Anything, that's where there's more a target-rich environment to recruit young people. So the parents have to know that the gang members are just not always on the street just hanging out. They're within your school system. That we having problems in the school system, and we're seeing that. So we got to combat it from all angles and all ends. So by all means, if they see one, get involved in the school system, because that's where the kids are coming from. That's where the kids are being exposed. Join the PTAs, get in touch with the teachers, see what's going on. Because like I told you before, if a change in your child, it's going to be an emotional change. But if you disconnect with that child, you're going to miss it.
You will. Yeah, you'll miss it indeed. I hope that people respond to this. You all have both brought to light some very powerful issues. I mean, to sit here and talk to you and to realize that you see these things, that you've had conversations with parents who don't have children because the children were killed. It's real, and we don't want to wait till it gets too huge. And I just want to, on behalf of the parents out there, say thank you to both of you for what you're doing, and I hope that people will reach out to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for you bringing awareness to this problem. That's what we need.
Anytime. Absolutely. Lieutenant Roundtree and Sergeant Williams, thank you, gentlemen. Be safe out there. When we come back, a couple of local agencies ready to help with gang intervention, ready to help with people on staff who can help these young folks. I know you're busy. I know you're working all the time, and you think you're doing the best you can to raise your children, but make the time to reach out to these people who are on the Means Report today and make a difference in that child's life. We'll be right back.